Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to retopologize a mesh in 3D. In fact, the dress that we retopologized the flat 2D version in the previous video. And as I just started, I got these new features to show the mouse buttons, left, right, and middle. And also down here we'll show you what keys I'm pressing, Q on the keyboard. Now that's not Shift Q, that's just Q on the keyboard. Capital letters are easier to see and distinguish, especially the letter Q. Okay, so let's first import our base mesh, and we are going to be doing the 3D dress. Okay, and it comes in wrong because when I exported it out of Marvelous Designer, I told it to export out with Z up, and Marvelous Designer and SketchRetopo Y is up. So we just need to rotate the avatar, or not avatar, the dress. Okay. Okay. Now why retopologize in 3D when you could do it on the flat version, which is actually an easier skill to learn? The reason being is that you can control edge flow much better on the three-dimensional object and retopologizing right on it, especially like places like here we have a little bit of a fold, you know, here and a little bit here. You want to be able to control the edge flow better, and that's really difficult to do on the flat version because you're not quite sure where the edge flow is. I tried to see if you can bring in a texture. Oh, load texture. Okay. So that might be a potential solution for the flat version, and maybe I'll experiment with that and make another video showing how to load a texture and so that you can see where the folds and wrinkles are. Okay, but that would be a whole nother video, and that would be one to make retopologizing edge flow in the flat version better. Okay, I've actually never even loaded a texture in this program, so anyway, and I've had it for a couple of years. So, alrighty. Well, anyway, back to this. Okay, so you want to be in basic sketch mode, which is Q on the keyboard, and you want to hold down the B key, and you want to hold. You see that little sphere, you know, that transparent sphere around the red dot. Well, that's the area of influence, and so if you go over the edge, you lose the red dot, and you don't have to have the red dot right on the edge of the mesh. You just have to have that sphere over the edge of the mesh. So hold down your B key and left mouse click, and we are creating curves that are going to be right over the edges of the mesh. Okay. Okay. The other thing I like to do often is come here in a camera and turn on orthographic. Okay, that's going to make some things easier. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to turn on the, under render, the baseline. That's going to show me it's like wireframe unshaded in Maya. Okay, I want a line going straight down the middle, there to there, straight down the middle, right? Okay, so I'm going to hit E on the keyboard, and this is a laser. It's a laser sketching, and you could think that it extends from both ends and goes right around. See? Okay. Control Z, get that back. And it's easier, instead of trying to go like this, I could go, see, I need to go longer than that. And there I got lucky. Okay, I was able to do it straight enough, but to make sure, it's easier just to start near the end where you want it to be on that end, and then bring it down and then let go. Okay. And then we're going to do the same for the back. Okay. And then we're going to do the seams on the shoulders. And you just look for the straight line. Okay, and if you hold down the Shift key and then left click and move, you'll smooth that curve out, and you can see it lines up exactly. Okay. And then smooth it. Okay. Now, the front seam and the back seam are not actually seams. If you watch the videos, and if you noticed in the Marvelous Designer where I show how to export it out, that's actually an internal line. That's why I put internal lines instead of breaking up the mesh into 4 separate UV islands, which would be the flat version of the mesh. I just put an internal line straight down the middle. Okay, now this is a seam right here. Now there's 2 different ways you can do this. You can do it with the laser, just like before, there and to the end point, and then use the Move tool, which is D on the keyboard, and oh no, I'm sorry, not Move, I'm sorry, Edit Curve, which is W on the keyboard. You'll notice down here, this tells us what mode we're in. So if you're not sure what mode I'm in, just look right over here in the lower right hand corner. Okay, so and then I'm gonna pull the curve, and you kind of want to go a little exaggerated, because we're going to be smoothing out this curve. Okay, so now when we smooth it, which is holding down the Shift key, you can see it's kind of getting a little bit closer. And then if I move that out a little bit, and that, and move that back a little bit. Okay, and the reason why I'm lining this edge so closely, and that came out pretty good. The reason why I am trying to line this up so closely is if I want the Marvelous Designer UVs, I'm going to want to have this edge be as close to the edge, the seam in the 3D dress, because then when I transfer attributes the UVs, the seams will line up, and you'll get a perfect, you'll be able to transfer the UVs perfectly. Let's see, the other way of doing it is go into basic sketch mode, and then I'm just trying to position my mouse. Well, again, you don't have to see, I know it's hard to see, but the sphere around the red dot just has to be over the point. You don't have to actually be right on the point, just over the point of where it is, and then start drawing your curve. I'm just holding down the left mouse button, and I'm trying to follow the curve as best I can, and then let go. And there we go. There we got a curve that is following that pretty good. You could go into a deform curve. I said edit curve before, but I guess technically it's deform curve, which is W on the keyboard, and just pull this a little bit to get it a little bit closer. And maybe shift smooth a little bit, just a touch, to get a nice smooth curve. Oh, and it looks like, for some reason, it didn't actually go all the way down. Okay, to add to a curve, see, I must have missed it when I was doing it, so that the curve ends here. Let's move this back over here just a little bit. Whoops, then of course something always messes something else up. There we go. Okay, get it closer. Okay, so go back into basic sketching, hold down the Control key and left mouse button to continue on from the curve. There we go. If you don't do that, you can continue on from the curve, but it's going to create a corner here. But if you do create a corner, there's no big deal. Just go T on the keyboard for edit corner, hold down your control key, and that will delete it. Okay, so now we have our second curve done. And we have all our seams done for the dress. Okay. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and hide. We don't need to see the baseline anymore. It's a lot easier to see. So now that we don't need it. Okay. So what I usually like to do is I like to, with the laser, I like to do an edge loop or create a curve that goes all the way around, just right underneath the breast here. And I do it on a downward angle, which will become clear in just a minute. So with the laser, I start there. I want to get my angle about like that, and I let go. And this is why we do it in orthographic mode, because we get a nice, super crisp, horizontal, it follows it's symmetrical, follows it perfectly. Okay, the other thing I like to do is I like to put a curve that goes all around right above the breast, but underneath the armpit. Okay, and so I take kind of mental note as to where the lowest part of the front, your opening of your neck, right here, the neckline, and then I take and I don't want to go right underneath there like that, because I usually want about 4 quads going underneath the armpit area. So you don't want to do it real close like that. I bring it down a little bit like that, and I let go. And so you can see why this is why I did this first one lower. Okay. Now, and you can see it automatically filled in the areas. If it doesn't fill in an area, I'm going to go basic sketch mode. I'm going to hold down the V key, and that deletes a patch. And now, if you get something like that, and you're like, okay, how am I supposed to get that back? Well, no big deal. In basic sketch mode, just hold down the X key on your keyboard, and put the sphere over one edge of the patch. If you didn't know, my previous videos, I suggested that you watch the gentleman who, Kenshi is his name, who wrote the program. He did a series of videos. They're like 12 videos. They're nice and short, very concise, unlike my videos. He's got great videos that show you exactly how to use all the tools in this program. So he will have gone over that already. So definitely watch those videos. So anyway, what you want to do is, there we go, is hold down the X key, left mouse button, and drag to the other side. You don't have to go all the way over, and then let go, and it will refill in that area. Okay. Oh, and I should have said in the very, very beginning, save your work. Save XML. And we'll say, for video example, 3D, and hit enter. Okay? You actually want to do that probably immediately right after you import your mesh, because now it will autosave. Because this program is a beta version of the program, and so it can, and it crashes from time to time. So you want to make sure that you have that on so that it autosaves. It's going to autosave every 30 seconds here, and so if it does crash, you'll only lose 30 seconds worth of work. Okay. So, and then if you hit the space bar, you can see what the mesh is currently looking like. Okay, and hit the space bar again and get it back. I'm going to take it out of orthographic mode now, because when you're in orthographic mode, if you hit A on the keyboard, go into edit topology, and you click on a curve, this tells you how many quads that are running along this curve, which is awesome. This is the biggest reason why I love SketchRetopo over I think there's maybe only one or that Blender might have a version where you can adjust the quads running along a curve like that. But almost no other retopology program allows you to control the number of quads that are running along a section or a curve. See, I can make it smaller, I can make it bigger, and you just can't do that. Or like I said, I think Blender might be the only other one that has a feature like that, which may have been based on SketchRetopo. So I could, like, if I hold down the control key and click on the curve, I get all these curves that are running around along at quads, and now I can increase them all or decrease them all. Okay, there's nothing like that in Maya that will let you adjust these things on the fly and see how they go. And there's no other program, period, that I can find. Whoops. Okay, see, these are called poles or singularities. There's no other program that will allow you to move the poles like this, to adjust things, to get them where you want them. No other program. I mean, and you can hit B on the keyboard and get different poles. See, this is the one feature that is not in Kenshi's video that I could find. And I rewatched the video that deals with patches and how you see these arrows here. If I hit C, I can make them bigger or smaller, by clicking on those arrows. And no other program out there has these features. There's even if I go into S, which is query database, and I click this, and I can do a couple things. I can either just go restart, and what it's going to do is it's going to look up to find a whole bunch of solutions. Okay, I mean, already up to 244 solutions. Now it's on 500. I'm going to pause. I'm going to stop it because there's no way I'm going to go through 800 solutions. So if I come here and stop it, now if I hit X on the keyboard, it will show me. I can go through them all one at a time until I find one that I like, and Z goes down by one. So I could just sit here and find all the solutions, and eventually it's going to get to more solutions than just moving that up. It's going to get into different patterns. See, now it's getting into different patterns. Okay, till you find one that you like. So, and 1,600 patterns, 1,600 different possibilities. Okay, that is finding for you. Okay, and you can also do things like if you want, you can hold down your left mouse button and say, I want the poles to be contained just in this area. Draw a circle like that. It's automatically going to start looking for patches. You don't have to hit start. Okay, I'm gonna hit stop now. Click on stop. Okay. So 800 patches, and we can do the same thing by going through the different possible solutions. Okay. Now this particular part of query database, this is the database that you can download. Now there's several different databases. I downloaded and installed the smallest, but even the smallest, you see I have over 800. I stopped it before it was completed. And you just click until you find a pattern that you particularly like. I've never myself have seen a pattern out of this that I really particularly care for. And you could do things like, and like I said, if you'd watch Kenshi's video, you would see that you could, with this red curve, you can adjust how how it tries to keep the edge flow using that red line. And let me see. I got to come over here and stop it. Okay. So that's another great feature. And it did try to look at it. It did try to do the edge flow, just like I had it. So it will try to keep that edge flow of the query database. So if I just wanted the edge flow to flow down like that, it will see. It's trying to keep that edge flow. Is what that red line does. And so, if I can just turn it off. Well, is it going to crash? I'm going to pause the video and try to get back. Okay, it didn't crash. It just took quite a while. 2,700 different possible solutions. Now that actually doesn't look half bad, as far as a solution is concerned. So it can come in very handy. And so that is another reason. Okay, I'm going to edit topology, and let's see, what is this here? 26. So I'm going to increase that to 26 to get that back to normal. Okay. And anytime you see a little asterisk at the end of the thing, that means it hasn't been saved. So you can just hit Control S to save it. But it will save every 30 seconds anyway. Okay. Now okay. So let's continue on with this dress. Okay. There's two schools of thought. You could either try to make a very low poly dress, and which means to line, you would have less. If you had fewer polys, say you wanted to snap this on the 3D dress in Maya, you would have fewer vertices to have to snap. If you wanted to get the seam to be absolutely perfect with your original 3D mesh from Marvelous Designer, or you can go low poly, and because this is going to create perfect quads. That's the only other great thing about SketchRetopo is it creates perfect quads, which you can just then add edge loops, or add edge loops in Maya, or select a number of faces and add divisions to add more detail in an area to make it higher resolution. And you can do that. So one way of thought is to make this low poly as possible, and then add divisions in Maya later, just where they're needed, and edge loops just where they're needed, so that you're trying to be as efficient as possible. Or you can just be as efficient as possible in this program, but make this as high a poly as it needs to be. So okay, so edge flow. Okay, you can see here the edge flow is not great. You see here is here's a couple of folds, and they're running this way. If you think of a line running along the top of it, that's where you want the edge to be, and you want the other edge to be running as perpendicular as possible. So this is bad edge flow. Okay, if you're going to try to capture the details of this, yes, you can do it with a normal map, but it's not the greatest. So what I would suggest is we go into basic sketch mode, and we can see we want an edge. We can create a curve that runs along this to define a new patch. So if we start from there and we draw it down, and you can even curve it over slightly like that. now we've created a new patch, and if you hold the Shift key down, it will smooth it out a little bit. And we can even do the same thing here up to, say, about there. So you just have to have the sphere over the corner and then start drawing and get to the end. You don't want to go over the end, otherwise you'll end up with a little bit of curve sticking out there, just so that the sphere is touching the end. And then we can smooth that out a little bit. You can go into edit, edit curve, deform curve, W on the keyboard, and we can then pull this down a little bit. You always pull down farther than you need it to go, and then Shift smooth it. Okay, so if you want that to come down like that, then you can Shift smooth it. Okay, so now we need to, and we're in edit topology mode, click this curve, and we know that's way too few, so we can increase the number by hitting C. Okay, and now we're getting something, and this is where maybe, let's see, maybe we also want to increase the number of curves here, 4 and 4. Okay, and that does increase that there, but it kind of messes things up in the front. So this is where with Basic Sketch we're going to draw a line, and it's nice in that we can say, okay, we're going to draw another curve starting from there in Basic Sketch mode. Just follow the edge flow to there that already exists, and there to there. Shift to smooth it out, and now we can go into edit topology, 4 and 4, and we can increase it. Wrong way. Okay, let's do 8 because we need to have enough. Yeah, 8 looks pretty good. Okay, and like I said, this is what I love about this program, is it automatically generates the poles for you, and you can edit those poles. So we can go into, we're in edit topology, hit Q, and this is where the other thing. So you can also, if you don't get those arrows, that usually indicates that you can drag these poles, and like get more detail where you need it. So you can decide, do I want to bring the pole down? Well, if I bring the pole down, that means fewer edges along this little area here. So if I pull it this way, I get a little more better density on the edge flow. And then, so you'd want to do the same thing over here. And it seems to, more often than not, it goes opposite. Let's see. Okay. It moves the opposite than the way you're dragging it. Sometimes it goes along with the mouse, lots of times it doesn't. Now here we have much better edge flow, although we are definitely going to need to smooth these areas out. Okay. Okay, now you can either do it with the smooth tool, or, okay, now this is an area where it can very easily crash. Okay, so this is one area where the program crashes more often. If you hit D on the keyboard for move and hold down the control key and left mouse click, it will redistribute the vertices in that area. Sometimes it doesn't work and it goes all crazy. Okay, if I were to do that here, see it redistribute. I can't even say it. Redistributed. Them a little bit more evenly. Okay. Okay. Redistributed. And we can try going into Basic Sketch mode and hold down the V key and delete it, and then hold down the X key and see if we get a better result. No. Okay, so what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to come in here. And lots of times it's easier to smooth in this view. Although, let's see. We do need to decide. Okay, this seems to be. That's okay. As far as, okay, I went into edit topology 24. Is that overkill for going up here? No, not really. That's not overkill for horizontally. If we're making the finished mesh, you know, or we're not making a low poly version. Okay, now that, but you see, because this is squeezed down, maybe this shouldn't be 24. So let's lower that to maybe, yeah, see, it's really super dense, which actually is not too bad because the butt area expands and you want enough to go over that. But let's do 18. Okay. And then let's check this. That's 6 and 6. Okay, this 6, 6, 6, 6. This is way too low poly. Oh, see, this one is even 8. Oh, these are 8 over here. Okay, that's the other thing that I should have done first before I started adding these edge loops in here. It's a good idea to get your mesh to be symmetrical. You know, same numbers on both sides. So let's first get this up to 8. Oh, and see, it's going to follow the edge flow when I hit Control click. Okay, so we have 6, 6, and 6 up there. I know probably not going to want 6. Oops, 6 up there. Oh. Okay, let's try this again. Control click. I know this is going to be higher than 6, but okay, so that looks okay. Make sure I only have the curve selected that I want. And so let's first make it just 8 so it matches the other side. That's 8, 8, 8, 8. Okay. And that's actually not looking too bad. Let's do that again. Let's Control click there, and then I can Control click there. And let's bump this up to 10. That looks better. Okay. That looks better. Okay. This is definitely going to be bigger than 2. At least 4, maybe 6. Well, we'll do 4. Okay. This might have been a bit overkill, so let's lower that to 8. And 4 is fine for there. And we might want to bring this down a little bit more. Okay. And then we're in edit topology mode, we can decide where do we want this to be. You know, what edge flow makes the most sense. You know, that looks okay because we get a nice sort of rounded curve. And then we'll do the same thing for this side just to mirror it. Okay, it's still a little squished here, but this is where if you hit the space bar, you get this. And then we can go into the Move Vertex tool, which is D, hold down the Shift key, and we can kind of smooth this just a little bit in this area. Like that. Okay, we're still keeping that edge flow right here. So we're smoothing that area. Okay, and you can smooth this area in here and underneath here. But let's undo that. I'm going to hit spacebar because we're not done with the top yet. But it's already looking pretty good, you know. And that's quite nice, the edge flow. Okay. So, okay, so we're not done with the top here. Okay, so we know we want at least 4 underneath the armpits. I never do just 2. So I'm going to do 4 underneath the armpits. Okay. And let's go to the front. And, okay. Where's the upright? Yeah, if we turn on upright, it might try to, it's because it's Z up. See, it's trying to, if it was Z, if we had exported this out with Y up, it'd be a lot easier because you can turn upright on, and then it tends to keep it more like on a record turntable. You know? Oh, God, if you even know what a record turntable is. Oh, I'm sure you do. You know. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go and edit topology, and we're going to look at these. Okay, well, first we're going to change these from 6 to 4. 6 is overkill on that, so I'm going to bring it down to 4. 4 is just fine. And then I know 6 isn't going to be enough on these, so I'm going to increase those to 8. And that's not enough, so let's increase these to 8. See, now we get a nice edge flow around the neck area. I know this being 2 is not going to be enough because I'll show you in a minute. So I'm going to increase that to 4. Okay. And this down here, 6, is not enough. Okay, we know that's not going to be enough. So let's increase that to 8. And I might even go 10. 10 looks good. Okay. 10 looks pretty good. Because you want enough, you need enough vertices going over the edge, over this curve right here. Otherwise you won't have enough detail and the leg will start poking through. This down here is fine. Okay, and then we went to 8, and 8, which is good. We could go 10. Well, let's see what it looks like with 10. You know, 10 would be a little bit smoother. 8, yeah, let's do 10. Okay, and the arms, let's do those 10 as well. Whoops. Okay. And lots of times, just the default where it sticks the poles is awesome. You know, if for, like I said, if for whatever reason it wasn't symmetrical on both sides, even though you had all the numbers, the same number of edge quads that run along each curve, if you go into Edit Topology, hit A on the keyboard again, then just hit the B key until you get, until it comes, see, till it becomes symmetrical, you know. So like you could do there or there, you know. And if you keep hitting B, eventually it will come up with these wild versions of poles, which might be interesting, but that doesn't actually look that great. One thing is, once you do that, once you're using the B key to choose the different pole patterns, whatever you do in Edit Topology, again, don't ever click that area again, or it will go back to the original one that it started with. Okay, but I kind of like this look right here. That's okay. Okay. So the next one area we got to deal with is the breasts. The breasts definitely need a lot more definition. So what I would do is start off in the middle here. That's obviously not going to be enough. So let's increase that to say like 12, right? Good rule of thumb is that if that is at 12, the sides here and here, will be at 10, just two less. So let's put there at 10, okay? And then we can click here and we can then drag the poles around. I like putting the poles over on the sides here. And I don't ever really, I don't like it when the pole ends on the curve. Because if you have it end on the curve, you can get some weird things. Like, see, okay, didn't happen on this one because the pole was ending in a really pointy shape. Whoops. Okay, but this pole here, this blue pole here on this side, if I go on the curve, it flattens the quad out to where it looks like it's a triangle, but it's a quad. Now the problem there is, if when you triangulate it, it decides to run, to triangulate it from here to here, and then you're going to have a weird edge there. Now, and I like lining up the poles to where it kind of looks like they all flow, you know. You know, that to me looks better. Okay. Oh, the other thing is, before you start dragging the poles around, is go into deform curve, W, and I pull this down a little bit. And by pulling this down a little bit, you get a nice kind of curve that goes up over. And you can push this curve up a little bit. And you can even, if you even want to, you can make it into a curve and smooth it a little bit and push that up. So what that does is it concentrates the vertices in this area, which are going to be expanding when somebody makes their breasts bigger or smaller. Okay. And then once you get the poles lined up, you know, and let me do it with deform curve. I'm going to pull this up a little bit like that. Get a little nicer curve. Kind of think of it as a bra, you know. Okay. And I was shifting. I was smoothing the curve out by holding the shift key down and left mouse button, which you probably know is okay. So if I go to the move vertex tool again and hold down the control key, let's see what happens. And click left mouse click. There, it gave it more. See, that time it worked. It gave it a more evenly distributed vertices. See if we do it here. Hold down the left mouse button and the control key and left click. See, it distributes it more evenly. Okay, and whoops. Okay, then of course we gotta go in edit topology mode, which is A, and let's drag this over there. Make sure it's the same on both sides. I try to make sure that the poles are along the same edge loop, and click here, and is it like that? Nope, one more. There we go. And we can go into the move tool again, which is D on the keyboard. Hold down the control, and that more evenly just smooths them. Okay, so now we have enough topology. Let's see. Trying to think, is this enough? And we know we have enough detail going horizontally, but what about vertically? This would probably be enough, But if we wanted to increase, we can try going here, 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 and here, and increase it, let's see, 12, 14, to try to get a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Okay, that looks better. So we have 14 going across there. Okay, so that, of course that means we have to click here again, and we got to line this up again. Oh, see, now it's working. Now it's moving with it. I love it when it moves with it. Okay. Because it's easier to control. Okay, and then move tool, control click to more evenly distribute it. And now we have plenty of detail in this area. Okay. But now we need to add here, and we've got to figure out how do we want this to look. Because, yeah, we don't need an overabundance. See, if I pull it this way, we're adding a lot of detail in here that we don't need. So if we pull it this way, here we go. Although I'm not necessarily thrilled with the way this is. So what we can do is, I'm not real thrilled with what this looks like in here. It just doesn't, it probably look okay once we smooth it. But what I'm going to do is, this looks a little stretched because they're not square quads, they're kind of rectangle. So what we could do is increase this. Now we have square quads. That looks better. Okay. So, and then we can pull this. That looks better. Okay, and so that's 3 quads in, 2 quads down. So we can 3 quads in, 2 quads down. Okay. And that to me looks a lot better. That looks a lot better. Okay. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay. And we could have gone through the different, if we had hit the B key, we could go through different versions. If we hit C, we can make those farther apart. You know, and that would have been okay. You know, of course, as soon as you hit it like that, let's see, you lose it. Okay, and can we then drag? No, we can't. Oh yeah, we can still drag it. Okay, so we could drag it to make it closer like that, and you end up with something like that, which is not bad. So you can drag it as it only goes back. So I can't do it again. See if once I click it. So you can B key it to where you like it, you know, and you can hit the C key to increase it, or X key to decrease the distance, and then you can still drag it to the area where you like. But now once I click off of it, don't in edit topology mode click here again, or it will go back to the original. See, that actually looks pretty decent. You know, I could use the curve tool, edit curve tool, or deform curve, and I could push this up and smooth it, and then go into move vertex, hold the shift key down, and smooth this out a little bit so that, you know, that actually looks pretty nice. You know, that would not be bad at all. I know it's not really necessary, nobody would ever see it. But yeah, so that's how you can get these really nice topology. You know, ideally this curve here would be just underneath the breast right here. But I'm not going to go through that much work because I know that I'm just trying to get back to how I had it before. Oh, well, easy to say A key and click there. Although, yeah, is it gotta go 3 and 2. Okay, so now it's back to the way it was. I know this will work fine, and I'm going to smooth this a little bit anyway. But yeah, you can see how you can really get into this and really, you know, design something that really looks nice. Okay, so we're not quite done. I do know this is, okay, A, edit topology, 6 is not enough. And that's 8 over there. So 1, this is 6. It should be 8. And what is this? That's 10. So and this opening here is a much longer curve. You know, this curve here, than this curve here. And this curve is 10. So this has got to be a minimum of 10. So these go like that. Minimum of 10, but I'd probably do 12 because it's a bigger area. And here, these are 10, which is probably okay, but let's do 12 there too. Okay? Since these were 10, and it's like I said, it's a smaller area, and so okay. And this is that's only 4. Let's do 6. I'm just trying to keep these quads, you know, all about the same. You know, if I control Z back, you can see these were elongated a little bit. So to make these square, 2 things I could do. I could either go into deform curve and push this up so that we're stretching these just slightly and we're squishing these a little bit until I got square. Actually, why don't we do that? Because we're trying to keep this somewhat reasonable. Although these are pretty big quads right here, but I think in Second Life they'd be just fine. Although, you know what? Let's make that 6 anyway. And then we can go into edit curve, deform curve, and bring this down a little bit more. Shift will smooth that a little bit. Let's bring this one down a little. Okay. Maybe bring these down a little bit to try to get a little bit better edge flow there. Okay. And then if I go into edit topology mode, I can't really drag it around. You know, so as soon as I try to drag it, it won't move. But with these arrows, I can decrease the space between them or increase the space. I don't like it when poles end up on the curve like that. That'd probably be just fine, but you end up with really stretched out polygons. So if I want to bring them together, X on the keyboard, and that's as close as they get there. And that looks okay. I like that better. So I'll do the same thing here. X on the keyboard. That looks better. That looks a lot better. We're still going to have to smooth this out a little bit down here. And did it mess up our poles here? No, it didn't mess our poles right here, so that's good. So you can smooth, like I said, D on the keyboard, hold down the shift key like that, but I just find it easier if I hit spacebar and I can actually see a little bit better. And I'm just smoothing this out just a little bit. Also, the move tool is if you needed something to better follow, I can push. Well, I'd make the brush really big by holding down the right mouse button and making the area influence bigger, and then I can move an area like that. So if I was looking to make better edge flow, I can do that here. Okay, I could smooth this area out here a little bit. Oh, but you gotta be careful because the baseline mesh. Oh, see the baseline mesh. I don't want to pull it off of that curve. See, there's the curve, and you can also you can just push stuff around. I know it's visually confusing right now, but let's see. There's see, sometimes this will baseline mesh. Sometimes I haven't been able to get it to always work, but when you turn off these quads, sometimes the quads will go away, but the lines will remain. The curves will remain. And I haven't been able to get it to do that consistently. But anyway, I know it's visually confusing, but you look for that straight line, which is right there. Shift to smooth it, to line that up really good. And you gotta be careful. See, I'm going over the edge. Wait a minute. I moved over the edge, and my sphere was so big it was going over here, and it was really messing that up. So you gotta be careful. So I'm gonna hold down my right mouse button and drag it so it doesn't move quite so much a big area. Okay, so that's pretty good. That should transfer probably really nicely. Let's turn off the base mesh. Okay, and we're still in the move key, so we can still smooth that out a little bit. And I like to smooth underneath here a little bit. Okay. And lots of times it's recommended to zoom in instead of making the ball bigger or smaller. And also, if you hold down the control key and right mouse click, that's the strength, I believe. So if we make the strength less, it should move. It didn't hold the shift key. Shouldn't move as much, I don't think. I think that's what that does. See, if we make it really small, now it seems to, well, maybe, okay, but what happens if we make it really big? I don't really see a difference. I thought that would change the strength. And you can also just push it instead of using the shift key. You can also just push it just a little bit. So that we get a nice edge flow there. Let's smooth in between here a little bit. Okay. And do I have the same number of, oh yeah, see how my ball was too small on the edit topology mode. So I have to hold down, to edit topology mode, to change the area of influence. It's just not right mouse button, it's shift right mouse button to make it. So some tools to get it, the sphere bigger and smaller, it's just right mouse button, drag left and right. Some it's shift, drag left and right. So I want to make sure that is the same, right? 10 and 10, right? Okay. Okay, and let's go back to the move tool. I want to push this up just a little bit, try to make it symmetrical. Okay, it's because we moved some stuff over here. Oh, see, there's a, it's, oh, move, yep, make that a little smaller. Maybe smooth that a little bit. Okay. Smooth that a little bit. And that's actually looking pretty good. So we're able to get pretty decent edge flow. I'm going to do this big and try to pull that down to get a little bit better edge flow. And that's much better edge flow. Yeah, that's much better edge flow. Okay. See, this particular mesh from Marvelous Designer has a little bit of like weird bumpiness through here. It's not necessarily see, it's kind of bumpy. Some of that's due to the particle distance I had to set to default, which was 20, so that these folds and wrinkles aren't really particularly all that smooth. So, and of course I don't want the detailed, this bumpiness down here, so I'm not worried about that. And you can see, you can kind of see it there. Now this is the high poly, this is the highest resolution mesh. Let's see, we're still in the move tool. I might want to move, see I don't want to move this curve, but I might want to move these vertices to be a little more dense on the sides there. Okay. Oops, of course then that pulled this edge out of alignment. So you want to be careful when you get over. I'm just smoothing. And anytime you see that break in the yellow, that means that the vertice just went over the edge a little bit. So I'm going to pull it back just a little bit. Okay. Smooth that area out. That's looking better. Kind of do the same thing for the other side. I'm just not holding down the shift key or anything. I'm just sort of increasing the density of the mesh in that area. What happened to my mouse thing that was supposed to be up here in the right hand corner that was showing? Hold on. Okay, I don't know how long that's been not doing that. Sorry about that. Yeah, so right mouse click. It won't make the area bigger or smaller. Control, that was supposed to be the strength, but I'm not sure if that actually does that. Shift makes it bigger or smaller. Right mouse click. Okay. So I just want to... Oh, that's basic sketching. Move tool. There we go. And shift to smooth it just a little bit. Now we want this to go this way. Oh, too big. Don't want it to go over the curve. And then smooth that out. Okay. That looks better. And smooth this out just a little bit. Just a little bit. Like I said, lots of times it's going to do this in there. In this mode because it's less visually confusing. But did that move the curve? No. Good. Okay, so that looks better. Okay, so that looks better. Okay, good. I didn't move it. Control Z to get back just to see if I moved this edge here, but I didn't, so that's good. That's the seam. Maybe smooth this a little more on this side, or on this side. No, wait, I'm trying to make it smaller. Just right. Oh, just control. Just not. Just see. It gets so confusing when you're in different modes. It's like, okay, is it just the right mouse button to make the area influence bigger or smaller? So sometimes it gets a little confusing. That's what you saw me kind of going crazy there, going, wait a minute, which one is it? Okay. So overall, I really like that. We have density where we really need it because the breasts expand. We have, I don't know, is that enough density on the butt? Actually, I think that is enough density. If there was an area, okay, if I wanted to add a few more edge loops in here, I could go into the edge loop tool, which is, where is it? It's F on the keyboard. I could insert an edge loop like there and there. Of course, that's going to go all the way around. You know, I could add density that way, but it will go all the way around. That I could fix later in Maya you know. But I am not, let's see, let's go into edit topology. You know, I am just, what if I put that there and that there? Is that enough? Or do I want to go to 20? Let's go to 20. Yeah, that looks better. Okay. And although we're going to have to smooth it a little bit, D on the keyboard, make this bigger. Whoops. To smooth that just a little bit. There we go. That's better. Smooth that just a little bit. Awesome. Okay. Alrighty. So yeah, I think that looks pretty good. I don't really want to smooth this. I would, well, let's see, let's just try smoothing it just a little bit. There you go. And let's look at this side. Looks okay. See, I don't want to get it too far off. I don't want to smooth that too much because I don't want to get this curve off of the seam. So I'm going to zoom in. And I'm smoothing along here. Along there. I don't think it's going to make any difference there. So we're almost done, believe it or not. Move. Okay, when we smoothed it, we got it a little bit off. From the edge flow that I liked. To smooth it. Yeah, when you're dragging stuff, you usually want to overcompensate. Drag it a little bit more farther than you think, because when you smooth it, it'll come back down. You know, so it's like if you drag it a little bit too far, you drag it a little bit too far, and then when you smooth it, it will go back. And this doesn't look too bad. So I like it when it goes up and over the hip, which is good. Gives a little bit more natural movement when after you rig it and it's moving. So awesome. Okay, I want to move this just a little bit. Let's smooth it just a little. And there we go, that looks nice. Okay, let's show the baseline real quick. Okay, it looks like everything's still on center. So, so that's why I love this program. Like I said, you can, it helps you, no other program allows you to deal with the poles like this. you know, that I know of. Maybe there's a Blender plugin based on SketchRetopo, and that it's incorporated all these. I've seen a plugin for Blender, and it does some of it, but it doesn't do it as easy. And I don't think it allows you to deal with the polls this way. But that it was a couple of years ago when I looked at it. So hopefully maybe it's improved, because if Blender got a plugin that had SketchRetopo in it and worked just like SketchRetopo here, maybe even with some minor improvements, I would definitely just retopologize in Blender then. You know, so awesome. Okay, so I think we're done. You know, there's always, you know, you can always go, okay, there's a little thing right here. Let's move that just a slight, you know, you can always keep going and tweaking little things here and there, you know, to get it just to be just right, you know. But, you know, now mind you, I've been talking while I'm doing this, and that slows me down quite a bit. Cause so it's an hour and 15 minutes, you know, that this video has been on. Oh, this is another area that I didn't fix that I want to fix. Is just underneath the armpit here. See how this is sort of collapsed on itself? So in the move tool, come in real close. Now there's two ways I could do it. I could either one thing, whoops, hitting the space bar. The quads are evenly spaced along here. So along that curve. But that's okay. Like, although sometimes it's better to not move the curves, because they're going to get off of the mesh itself. Okay, here's another. See where this line ends, but the yellow curve up here is up here. This is where the vertice actually is. See, that's where the vertice actually is. And you can see where the edge of the mesh is. So I could pull it up more like that. So that's on the edge of the mesh. And I want to do the same thing for this. So I'm going to pull that down, pull this over, and line it up just with the edge. Shift to smooth that out a little bit. Let's pull that down. And we can pull this one over. Okay. Pull this down. Smooth it a little bit, because you don't want the quads to be crushed like that. So let's pull this down a little bit. That's better. Okay, so that is better. Because if they get crushed, they're just a waste of polygon. Smoothing, smooth. Bring that down. Okay, see now that we're making better use of our quads, and they're not getting squished down, and it'll be easier to make adjustments, rigging and what have you, you know. See, that looks so much better. Now let's do this side. Let's first just drag these down and away. What's going on here? Let's shift. There you go. Okay, shift smoothed a little bit. And that looks better. That looks a lot better. Okay. Try to more evenly space these out. There we go. Just shift smoothed a little bit. And that looks a lot better. Okay. And everything else looks good. Okay. Okay. So now I think we're finally ready to export out surprised this isn't. Okay, there it goes. Smooth it out a little bit. Okay, so I think we are finally just about ready to export our mesh out. Okay, and hit Control S on the keyboard to save it before we export out, and export Retopo mesh. And we're going to say Retopo 3D. Why isn't it doing the space in there? There we go. 3D dress for video. Oh, do you want to replace it? Okay, we'll say number 2. Since I've done it once before. Number 2. Okay, so now that we've saved it, let's bring it into Maya, which I have already opened, and see what it looks like. Hit F on the keyboard. Okay. And first thing we'll do is let's soften the edges. Or, well, first thing let's do is merge, because see where these lines are white? Those are separate meshes, borders. So these are actually separate meshes. They're a single object, but they haven't been welded together. So let's go edit. Wait, mesh. Wait a minute, merge. There we go. Duh. Right there. Object. Then we're going to soften the edge. Soften edge. And so there is our mesh. Okay. Now we can bring in, I'm going to delete the history. Okay. And let's import the 3D mesh. Import 3D dress. Okay, so here's our 3D dress. Let's put this on the first layer. And we'll put the 3D dress on the next layer. I'm not going to label, I'm just going to remember. Okay, so we want to have our UVs. Okay, match. So we want to go from here, Control to select that one, and then we want to go Mesh, Attributes. We don't want vertex position, we want the UVs, world space, and apply. And so now when we hit our Retopo dress, we have the same UVs. Okay, we can look at them here. So they're really close. You could, if you want them to absolutely perfect, you would have to go through here and Okay, let's select this UV, right? And that is where on the other side. Okay, that's there. Okay, so if you want to have it absolutely smooth, just like the original, okay, so let's select the Retopo dress. What I do is I reverse it. Okay, and I turn off backface culling, or I turn on backface culling, and wireframe unshaded. Okay, so, and then vertex. Now you could do two things. You could put that over there. We could make, this is the 3D mesh. We could make it a reference mesh so we don't accidentally select it. And we could go like this. Whoops. Okay, so we go vertex and vertex mode. Come on, select it. Oh, I was trying to I was trying to select the wrong mesh. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's turn on camera-based selection. Okay, and now we'll move it. And if we turn on snap to curve, and we have two there. We don't want two, we just want this one. Okay, see, I have my thing here. This is, what is it? Display, heads up display. This is object details or poly count. I can't remember which. So one's object details, one's poly count. I think this is poly count or object detail. No, this is poly count. Yeah, anyway, it's one or the other. And so anyway, so I got it selected now. So if I middle mouse button and I snap it, that's going to, it's going to make sure, now watch, as I move this, it should adjust that. Let's zoom in. Notice how it adjusts it? It's because we still have the transfer attributes on, and it's doing it by world space. So this is what I mean by if you want it absolutely perfect, why won't you snap? Turn it. Come on, snap. Why won't you snap? Come on, just worked just a second ago. Okay, hit F on the keyboard. Sometimes it's easier to do it from the inside out. Come on, you. Snap. What is going on? Oh, camera-based selection. Okay, turn off the camera-based selection. It's because sometimes the mesh is inside. And then if I just hit the down arrow key and middle mouse button. Okay, so I'm inside the mesh selecting outward. Sometimes the camera, because the mesh you're trying to select is on the inside of the reference mesh, you get weird stuff like that happening. So you see, if you this is what I mean by the more you do it, the closer your original is to the actual border edge. When you do it, the less cleanup you have to do. But if you want it to be absolutely perfect, this is what you have to do. Come on. There we go. To line these up just right. Going up. Depends on how anal you are. If you want it to be just exactly the same. As the original. Oh, we could probably also turn on X-ray. That might make it a little easier to see things. And I just hit up arrow, up arrow. Up arrow. And so you get the point. If I go all the way up and do that on all of these, you'll get a absolutely 100% perfect representation, or a perfect let's try selecting the vertex through there. Hit F on the keyboard. You'll get it to where it's absolutely perfect. Okay? Okay, that's if you want to have exactly perfect Marvelous Designer UVs. Okay? Okay. And then, of course, we can take this and reverse it again. Let's see. Okay. Reverse. Turn off X-ray. And let's turn off wireframe unshaded. But yeah, so now we can see our mesh. And let's see. Pretty decent 3,900 triangles for a dress like this. And we get really, really nice edge flow right in here. Let's turn off wireframe unshaded. You know, get really nice edge flow through here. I would, you know, that little jaggedy thing there, you know, is not that great. What you could do is in Marvelous Designer, go back into Marvelous Designer. Now that you have the UVs from the original, let's see how much these are looking pretty good. There's a little bit just in here that I would probably fix to make it perfect. I won't do that on camera. I won't make you do that. Sit through it. But now that we have these and we have the UVs perfect, you could go back into Marvelous Designer, re-export out the 3D mesh, lower the particle density, run the simulator for just a second or two to smooth it out to slightly, then export out the 3D mesh again. But because it has the same UVs, you can then bring it back over into here and transfer the attributes again to the shape, and you can get rid of these jaggedy areas here. And you could probably even you know, smooth it a little bit with in Marvelous Designer with the hot iron or whatever, just to smooth it if it's still a little bit wrinkly down here. But this is probably easier to fix, just manually smoothing it. Averaging vertices, not actually smoothing it. Smoothing it would add divisions. So anyway, so that's from start to finish. It's an hour and a half long. It would not take you that long, especially when you've been doing it for a while. It won't take you that long to retopologize a dress like this. You know, there are times when retopologizing the flat is the only way you can do it. Imagine a skirt with a lot of ruffles in it, you know, or a dress with a lot of ruffles, or stuff that's overlapping each other, you know, like ruffles that overlap each other. You know, and so that retopologizing it in 3D just becomes impossible, you know. So that's why retopologizing flat can come in very, very handy. But retopologizing something in flat, to get something with this nice of edge flow, with the way these poles are lined up and all that kind of stuff, be very, very difficult to do. Although you can, they said you can get the edge flow in the 3D in the flat version. I'm going to do some experiments with importing textures into 3D Code. Not 3D Code, it's SketchRetopo, and I've never imported a texture in SketchRetopo before, but that might find useful, because if you create like a height map of the folds and wrinkles and bake them, the height map with the UV layout, and then you bring it in here onto the flat version so you can see where the folds and wrinkles are, you'll be able to get better edge flow on the flat version because you can then see them. So I'm going to try and do a little experiment, see how feasible that is. I've done it in the past before by ghosting the images for a little free plugin, but it's so quirky. It is, you got to have two images, like one in Photoshop, and have Photoshop open with the image with the folds and wrinkles on it, and then you ghost this. It turns SketchRetopo transparent so that you can see the Photoshop image behind it, and then you got to line it up with the camera just so, and in orthographic mode on here on the flat, and it gets really, like I said, you got to jump through a ton of hoops to get it to work to where it's so frustrating. If we could just import the texture onto the flat surface where you can see the folds and wrinkles, then that would be ideal. And so I'm going to try that and see how well that works. But anyway, so yeah, the reason why, in one of my last videos, somebody said, well, why don't you retopologize in Marvelous Designer? With Marvelous Designer, Marvelous Designer 12 has some good retopology tools, and that's a fair question. And my answer was, I don't have Marvelous Designer 12. It has no built-in retopology tools. I'm on Marvelous Designer 7. I bought it on Steam when you could get it for like $300, a permanent license, and so there's no need for me to rent for, like, what is it, for $35 or $40 a month, Marvelous Designer, to get the retopology tools. And I did briefly look at the retopology tools in Marvelous Designer after that comment, because I thought, well, maybe they've improved. And I don't think you can control the quad count. You can control the quad count before you start, retopologizing and making a patch, what they call a patch. But after you've made the patch, it didn't look like it had any controls where you can then change those quads counts along the edges, not like in SketchRetopo. And you couldn't control the poles where they were going to go. And so SketchRetopo still appears to be vastly superior to the retopology tools in Marvelous Designer. And so, and my other response was that, yeah, it does convolute it. It's much better if you can minimize the number of programs you're working in. Usually it's better. It's less convoluted. To use the word that he had used, or she had used, is that it's and it's less complicated, definitely. But it means you can only retopologize Marvelous Designer stuff you made in Marvelous Designer. Or SketchRetopo, you can retopologize any OBJ from any program. And so so that was my response. It was a good question. It's like, why aren't you using the retopology tools in Marvelous Designer? It's a very honest question, and it was a very good question. And like I said, it's just that some people don't have Marvelous Designer 12, and some people need to retopologize things other than Marvelous Designer. And so SketchRetopo being such a wonderful tool to retopologize with, that's why I brought it up. I could have retopologized in Maya, but even Maya doesn't have where you can change the quad count along edges and stuff, or mess around with the poles. You know, there's quad draw, and I played around with that a little bit, and that's very rudimentary. And I know that in, you know, so yeah, just no other program has these abilities that SketchRetopo does, especially with dealing with the poles and how to adjust them and move them, and the quad counts. It doesn't have that, and it has all the tools you need to smooth and this and that. So anyway, so you know, like I said, it was a good question, and I understand why they asked it. There's nothing wrong with asking it, and it does make it more complicated, you know. I should have told him, you want complicated? If you want complicated, you should look at my retopology tools using height maps. Oh boy, is that convoluted. But it does have, but sometimes it does, it works in situations where just nothing else will work, you know. So there's always, and somebody else, I think they said it in a different language, that, you know, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. Oh no, it wasn't different. It was like in, it was, I laughed when I read it. It was in Latin, I believe, you know. And so, yeah, there's always more than one way to skin a cat. And I love the way that he said it in like a Latin feline something, you know. So, and so anyway, yeah. So the more ways you know how to do something, different ways of retopologizing, some will come really into play when there's a particular problem. You know, this is just basically a tube dress. It's just a tube. This is relatively simple, you know. When you get into frills and folds, you know, something that has a lot of folds, it gets a lot more complicated. And so it might be easier to retopologize on the flat surface, you know, because usually, you know, so it's just all those different combinations. So anyway, so yeah, this is an hour and 42-minute long now video. I hope if you're still with me at the end of this video that you really got something out of it, and it really doesn't take this long to retopologize this whole dress. I could have probably done it in about 40 minutes, 45 minutes max. I probably could have done it, and I have not been retopologizing much. When I was making the 25 pieces of clothing for the MyStar avatar to give away when people got the avatar body, so they would have a starter wardrobe. I was making clothes like crazy, and so I was retopologizing, and I was doing quad remesher and this and that, and so when you you know, and so so there's that wardrobe that I made, I'm giving away for free, you know. So it's not commercial. I'm not selling the wardrobe that I may or may not have retopologized some of the clothes in it, just in case there's any lawyers listening. I'm not selling the clothes. I'm giving it away for free. So in the program, and I'm not selling the body. The body is free. So anyway, and so anyway, so yeah, so that's it. I hope you really get something out of this, and you come to love SketchRetopo the way I do. I just love it. But different retopology tools and methods, everybody ends up having their own. It's like, I love subdivision modeling. I've not really gotten into sculpting. I want to get into sculpting, but I just really love subdivision modeling. So everybody gravitates to a method that works best for them. So I hope this works for some of you out there. So anyway, have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.